All right, so you guys have really sent us down a rabbit hole with this one, a deep dive into the 2016 clown sightings phenomenon. We've got Wikipedia articles, and it looks like they're in multiple languages, news reports from like all over the globe, even some kind of spooky footage on YouTube. It's a little creepy, don't you think? Why are we even doing this one?
Well, it's fascinating how a figure that's, usually associated with joy and laughter could suddenly become something that people are really afraid of, even causing widespread panic, and in some cases, even actual criminal activity. There's just so many layers here, cultural, psychological.
Yeah, okay, so the first sightings that were reported here in the U.S. were in Green Bay, Wisconsin. At least that's what this Wikipedia article says. Apparently, some guy was just wandering around at night with black balloons. Okay, I have to admit that's a little creepy.
It does sound a little strange. Yeah, but it actually turns out that it was a promotional stunt for an independent horror film. The filmmaker, Adam Krause, even admitted to it later.
A promotional stunt, huh? Interesting. But then how did this whole thing blow up into this, like, global phenomenon?
That's the question, isn't it? What's really interesting is how this one isolated incident that was just meant to be, publicity, just completely morphed into something way bigger and way more unsettling. And the reports of these creepy clowns started popping up all over the U.S., from like Alabama to South Carolina, even Florida.
And it wasn't just us, right?
No, not even close. The Wikipedia article actually has a whole section that's dedicated to sightings in other countries: Australia, Canada, Chile, even Finland and the UK. It's like the whole world just went clown crazy.
Wow. That's insane. Do you think it was just a case of, like, copycat behavior? Or was there something else going on, something deeper?
Well, there's a historical precedent for this kind of thing, at least here in the U.S. The Wikipedia article mentions phantom clowns, which was an urban legend that was going around in the 1980s. There were a bunch of incidents where people were saying that they saw these creepy clowns trying to lure kids into vans.
Oh, wow.
It really tapped into this, pre-existing cultural anxiety about stranger danger and this like potential for evil lurking beneath seemingly innocent exteriors.
So basically, the 2016 clown sightings were kind of tapping into this, like, pre-existing fear of clowns.
Yeah, exactly.
But why clowns? What is it about them that's so unsettling to so many people?
That's a great question. I mean, clowns are supposed to be, symbols of fun and laughter, right? But there's also this sense of unease, I think, that comes with the, like, exaggerated features and their unpredictable behavior. It's like this mask that hides the person's true identity and their intentions. And that can be pretty unsettling, even frightening for some people.
Okay, I see what you mean. There's that certain ambiguity there. You never really know what's going on behind the smile. And then, of course, you have the pop culture influences like Pennywise from Stephen King's It. I mean, that definitely didn't help the whole clown image.
No, it definitely didn't. Pennywise definitely played a role in solidifying that image of the evil clown in pop culture. And the timing of the book coming out in 1986 kind of coincides with that rise of the phantom clown urban legend. And then obviously the film adaptations that came later further cemented that association in the public consciousness.
Right, and then there's John Wayne Gacy, the real-life killer clown. Talk about adding fuel to the fire. That whole case is especially disturbing because it just completely shatters the illusion of the clown as this harmless entertainer. It's like the ultimate betrayal of trust.
Absolutely. Gacy's crimes were committed while he was actively performing as a clown at children's parties, so it added this layer of genuine, tangible horror to the whole clown figure.
Wow.
Yeah, it brought the fear out of the realm of fiction and into the real world. And then, of course, you have the role of social media in all of this. Images and videos of these creepy clowns were going around online. They were being shared and reshared constantly, and it was just blurring the lines between genuine sightings, hoaxes, and pranks.
It was like a real-life horror movie playing out on our phones and computer screens.
Exactly.
And the media obviously ate it up and just fueled the flames of this growing fear. So we've got this, like, perfect storm of cultural anxieties, pop culture influences, social media amplification. No wonder this thing went viral.
It was the perfect breeding ground for what we call a moral panic.
Okay, hold on. What exactly is a moral panic? I feel like we keep dancing around that term.
You're right. I should probably explain that. A moral panic is basically a widespread fear, often irrational, that some evil is threatening the values or the interests of a community or society as a whole. And it's often fueled by the media, and it can lead to like a really disproportionate response.
So in this case, the evil was creepy clowns.
Pretty much.
But why clowns? And why in 2016? Like, what was it about that specific time?
Well, think about the social and political climate at the time. I mean, there was a lot of uncertainty and anxiety in the air. It was the 2016 US presidential election, which was incredibly divisive, and there were growing concerns about terrorism, global instability, and maybe people were already kind of on edge, primed for something to latch onto and project their fears onto.
So they were looking for a scapegoat.
Yeah, and clowns with their inherent ambiguity and unsettling nature became the perfect scapegoat.
So the clowns were just a symptom of a deeper societal unease. That's a fascinating way to look at it. It wasn't really about the clowns themselves, but about the anxieties that they represented.
Exactly. And the media, both traditional and social media, played a crucial role in shaping and amplifying this narrative.
Okay, so let's talk more about the media's role in all of this. How did they contribute to the spread of this moral panic?
Well, the media did what it, often does, sensationalize the story. Headlines were screaming about killer clowns and clown attacks, even though most of these reported incidents were just harmless pranks or unsubstantiated rumors.
So they were basically blowing things out of proportion to sell them in the papers.
To some extent, yeah, but it's not always that simple. I mean, the media also has a responsibility to report on events that are causing public concern, right? And in this case, there was genuine fear and anxiety surrounding these clown sightings.
Right, and I remember people were really scared. Like some schools even banned clown costumes for Halloween. And even Ronald McDonald, like the actual Ronald McDonald, was temporarily pulled from public appearances.
Exactly, which shows how this moral panic that was fueled by all this media coverage had a real impact on society. Even the most iconic clown in the world wasn't immune to it.
It's crazy to think about it now. It seems almost comical looking back, but at the time, it really felt like something out of like a nightmare.
That's the thing about moral panics. They can be incredibly powerful, even if they're based on completely irrational fears. They tap into our deepest anxieties and they exploit them for, attention clicks, ratings.
And social media played a big role in that too, right? I mean, people were sharing photos and videos of these creepy clowns, whether they were real or fake. And it just added to the whole hysteria.
Oh, absolutely. Social media was a complete game changer. It allowed the fear to spread like wildfire, unfiltered and unchecked. Anyone could post anything, and it could be seen by literally millions of people in an instant. And it created this echo chamber where these rumors and speculation were just constantly being amplified, and the lines between reality and fiction became increasingly blurred.
So it was like this perfect storm. You had the cultural anxieties, the media frenzy, and then social media just poured gasoline on the whole fire.
Precisely. And what's really interesting is that this phenomenon transcended cultural boundaries. So these clown sightings weren't just happening in the US, they were happening all over the world. The English and Spanish Wikipedia articles have detailed incidents from Europe, South America, Australia. It's like this fear of creepy clowns was this universal phenomenon.
Yeah, it's like it tapped into some primal fear that we all have. But what about the people behind the masks? The actual clowns, how did they react to all this?
Well, for professional clowns, this whole thing was a disaster. I mean, their entire profession, which relies on laughter and joy, was suddenly associated with fear and menace.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the Wikipedia article actually mentions a Clown Lives Matter movement that was started by a clown in Pennsylvania. It's a pretty powerful example of how quickly public perception can shift and how something that's intended for good can be twisted into something really sinister.
It's heartbreaking, really. These are people who dedicate their lives to bringing joy to others, and suddenly they were being demonized and targeted.
It's a good reminder that we should be really careful about judging a whole group of people based on the actions of a few.
Yeah.
And it also raises questions about the power of these media narratives and how they can shape our perception of the world.
Okay, so we've talked about the origins of this whole phenomenon, the role of the media and social media, and the impact on professional clowns. But what about the people who are actually dressing up as these creepy clowns? What were they trying to do? What were their motivations?
Well, that's a pretty complex question, and there's no easy answer. Some of them were probably just pranksters looking for a cheap laugh or some internet fame. Others might have been trying to capitalize on the whole trend. Hope is to scare people just for their own amusement.
Right, and there were also some reports of people using the whole clown scare thing to commit crimes, like robberies and assaults.
Yes, and those cases are especially disturbing because they take this phenomenon from the realm of harmless fun to something way more sinister. It's like they were exploiting this collective fear for their own personal gain. But there are also cases where the motivations were a little less clear. The Spanish Wikipedia article, for example, mentions a creepy clown that was filmed just standing on a road near Leyte. And there was no attempt to interact with anyone. There was no obvious motive. It was just really strange.
Like they were trying to embody the fear itself.
Yeah.
just by being there, they were tapping into this like collective anxiety, this unease that was already kind of simmering beneath the surface. It's almost like performance art in a twisted kind of way.
That's an interesting perspective. Perhaps some of these individuals weren't motivated by malice or greed, but more by a desire to express something a little deeper, something about the state of society or, the fragility of our sense of safety?
So you're saying they were like social commentators,
Maybe.
using the clown persona as a way to critique the absurdity of it all.
Maybe. Or maybe they were just messing with us. The beauty of this whole phenomenon, and also its terror, is that we'll never really know for sure.
That's true. It's like this collective Rorschach test. We all see something different in it, something that reflects our own fears and anxieties. But it's impossible to really know what the original intention was, or if there even was one.
Exactly, and that uncertainty, that ambiguity is part of what makes this whole phenomenon so unsettling. It's a reminder that we can never fully control how our actions are perceived, how they're interpreted and reinterpreted by others.
And speaking of interpretations, how did the public react to all of this? I mean, besides the fear and the moral panic, was there any pushback, any attempts to reclaim the clown image?
Well, there were definitely people who tried to fight back against the negativity. Besides the Clown Lives Matter movement, some professional clowns organized events and rallies to promote the positive aspects of clowning, to remind people that clowns are meant to bring joy, not fear.
I bet that was an uphill battle. It's hard to fight against the tide of fear, especially when it's been so effectively amplified by the media and social media.
Yeah, you're right. It's so much easier to spread fear than it is to spread hope. But it's important to remember that there were people else out trying to do just that, trying to reclaim the clown image and remind people that not all clowns are creepy.
It's like they were fighting for the soul of clowning, for the right to laugh and to make others laugh without being judged or feared.
Exactly. And that struggle, I think, is still going on.
So what happened next? Did the clown sightings just disappear? Did the fear just kind of fade away?
Well, like most social trends, it eventually died down. By the end of October 2016, the sightings had pretty much decreased and the media frenzy had subsided.
So it's just like a temporary blip on the cultural radar?
Yeah.
A collective nightmare that we all woke up from?
Not quite. The 2016 clown sightings, though, they were pretty short-lived, left a lasting mark on our cultural psyche. Even today, years later, the image of the creepy clown remains potent.
What do you mean? Do you think the clowns are going to come back?
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I don't think that's likely. But the fear that they represent, the fear of the unknown, the fear of chaos that never really goes away, it just kind of lies dormant, waiting for the right moment, the right cultural trigger to resurface.
Okay, now you're just trying to freak me out.
I apologize. I just think this phenomenon, as absurd as it may seem on the surface, raises some pretty profound questions about our relationship with fear, with the unknown, with the very nature of reality itself.
That's true. I mean, think about it. A figure of fun suddenly becomes an object of terror, and the whole world freaks out. It makes you wonder what other seemingly harmless things could become our next collective nightmare.
Precisely. And that, I believe, is the true value of exploring these kinds of phenomena. They hold up a mirror to our deepest anxieties. They force us to confront the things that really frighten us, the things that lurk beneath the surface of our rational minds.
So what does this all mean for us, the non-clown population? Should we be looking over our shoulders, checking under the bed for stray red noses?
I wouldn't say that's necessary, but perhaps it's a reminder to be mindful of the power of fear, of how easily it can spread and how quickly it can transform the familiar into something threatening.
And maybe a reminder to be kind to clowns. The real ones, anyway.
Indeed. After all, they're just trying to bring a little joy into the world. And who knows, maybe a little laughter is the best antidote to our collective anxieties.
So we've got these creepy clowns lurking in the shadows, tapping into our deepest fears. But is it really just about clowns? Or is there something more, something bigger at play here?
That's a really good question. I think the 2016 clown sightings, while bizarre and, seemingly superficial, can actually tell us a lot about ourselves, about how we react to uncertainty and fear.
Okay, I'm listening. Unpack this for me.
Well, think about the context for a second. 2016 was a year of intense political and social division, not just in the US, but globally. You had the Brexit vote, the rise of all these populist movements, and a growing sense of unease about the future. People were looking for someone or something to blame for all their anxieties.
Someone to blame.
And in a way, the clowns became that scapegoat. They represented everything that was unsettling and unpredictable and out of control.
So it's like this perfect storm of social anxiety and media manipulation, and the clowns just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Exactly. They became this blank canvas onto which people could project their fears, whether it was fear of the unknown or fear of violence or fear of the breakdown of social order. The clowns became a symbol of it all. And the media, of course, played a key role in amplifying that fear.
The media.
Sensationalizing the story, focusing on the most extreme and disturbing incidents, and creating this narrative that was designed to generate, clicks and ratings rather than providing accurate information.
Right, it's like they were feeding the frenzy instead of trying to calm it down. They were profiting from the fear.
In a way, yeah. But it's not always that simple. The media also has a responsibility to report on events that are causing public concern. And the clown sightings were definitely causing concern. The problem is that they often focus on the most sensational aspects of a story at the expense of nuance and context. And that can have a real impact on how people perceive the world around them.
So it's not just about the clowns or the media or even social media. It's about how these things interact and influence each other, creating these feedback loops that can just spiral out of control. It's like we're all caught in this web of information and misinformation, and it's hard to know what's real and what's not.
Precisely. And in that kind of environment, fear can spread like a virus. It can jump from person to person, amplified by social media, until it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. People start seeing what they expect to see, and the line between reality and fiction becomes increasingly blurred.
So what can we do about it? I mean, how do we navigate this world where information is weaponized and fear is a commodity?
Well, I think the first step is to be aware of the forces at play, to understand how the media works, how social media algorithms shape our perceptions, and how our own biases can influence how we interpret information.
So be more critical of the information we consume. Don't just believe everything we see and hear.
Exactly. Ask questions, seek out different perspectives, and most importantly, don't let fear control your actions.
That's good advice. And maybe we should all try to be a little kinder to each other, a little more understanding, a little less judgmental. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together.
I couldn't agree more. Perhaps that's the ultimate lesson of the 2016 clown sightings, a reminder that we're all human, we all have fears and anxieties, and that we need to support each other, not tear each other down.
And maybe, just maybe, we should all try to find a little more joy in our lives, a little more laughter, a little more connection. Because if there's one thing the clowns taught us, it's that fear thrives in darkness. But laughter has a way of chasing away the shadows.
Beautifully put. So keep the lights on, keep laughing, and remember the clowns are only as scary as we make them.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the 2016 clown sightings. It's been a wild ride, and who knows, maybe we'll see you again next time for another plunge into the depths of the bizarre and the unexplained.
Until then, stay curious.